Developing an emergent and inquiry-based curriculum, linking the building pillars of practice through the use of the Ashton Shielta Practice Guide. And there'll be a slide for each pillar with the name of the pillar on it. Building partnerships with parents. Collaborative learning is a big part of Susan's perspective. It's also reflected in our own Ashton and Shielta guidelines. To create a vibrant learning environment in collaboration with parents, we have to consider how we communicate with parents. A clear communications policy will help this collaboration to take place, and it will save what times are best to talk to staff and parents, possibly at the transitions, the handing over stages. And the communicating strategy will then enhance by adding family wall home board that we talked about earlier in Susan's presentation, where the families were depicted on a display with their welcoming signs. Another thing that would help building partnership with parents is having an open door policy, being welcoming, having parents bring children into the room the children will be with, and to collect the children from that room at the end of the session. This gives an opportunity for a brief handover with staff in contact with the child, and parents get an idea of what questions they can ask to start conversations around learning that went on during their day. Invite and involve parents in activities. Sue demonstrated that there in the safari scenario, and with the father coming in with the music. And we can extend that into our own building partnerships with parents by getting them involved in our services in appropriate ways for our services. If they've got a job or hobby that ties in with the theme you're working with, like if there's a nurse and the parents, they might help you with some information or props in your home corner when you're making it into a waiting room or exploring hospital or clinic visits with children. And sharing your observations, share your environment to taking pictures, creating displays and scrapbooks to share with parents, and we've seen a lot of that here with Susan's presentation. And there's references on the NCCA Ashton Shielta Practice Guidelines on the websites. The second pillar is creating and using the learning environment. All environments are learning opportunities, and we need to be reflective to keep them vibrant, stimulating and in line with current interest and seasons. And that was beautifully illustrated with the wind and the fence and the scarves. We can also look at layout and presentation. What way are we laying out our equipment and our materials? Check where the children are at, where is the interest, and then are the children being represented in their space? Are we following on their interests? And can the children follow their own lead and play? And again, the example that was there is perfect. And just changing a small element sometimes in something that's outside. Susan referred to that with taking the picture of a room at different corners about a month apart. And if there is something that's not being used or hasn't been changed around, maybe you need to look at how you can invigorate that area. So that's the physical layout. And creating and using your learning environment you can see this then when you use your displays and resources. Are displays both indoors and outdoors at child level? Are they current and seasonal? Your resources, are they appropriate? Is there anything you need to add to help extend the play? You don't need to manage or interfere with it, but is there any props that you can introduce in? And to treat, somebody mentioned in the feedback or the comments when Susan was talking about we don't get outside enough with children. There's things that we do inside that we can just take outside. The activities that we're presenting indoors are equally at home outside. Sand and water play maybe even more so, but you can paint, you can do all the activities that we do inside, outside. So it's to make the most of those environments. And the third pillar is learning through play. And this is achieved through creating stimulating environments and activities for children based on their emerging interests, age and abilities. And when we do our own reflections through observations, they help us to offer choices and activities that follow on from what we have seen and are relevant to our children that we're caring for on that day. The home corner and cooking and gardening, and those things can be made seasonal and more real for children by keeping them up to date and viewing them regularly. Learning through play can be further developed and enhanced by offering a variety of choices. Practitioners can create opportunities for play by organising and resourcing their environment with open-ended materials and equipment that reflects children's interests and needs. And that can be developed by adding open-ended resources, and so things are not always used the same way. They can be used in different areas, and you can support play that the children are engaging in when you're watching them and observing them. You can prepare a prop box or different interests the next day to extend it, a bit like the way you said that the after the wind activity outdoors, the next day the room was set up with hairdryers and the tennis balls, and they were doing other little play. They had other play opportunities to build on that learning from that day. So that's the learning through play, and that's our third pillar. And the fourth pillar is all about nurturing and extending play. And nurturing and extending play happens through our interactions and relationships. And this morning we looked at those quality interactions and relationships between children, between the practitioners and the children, and how the adults or the practitioners can provide support and nurture and extend play with positive affirmations, with supporting it if something is fun, naming it as fun, and encouraging them to carry on with their learning and play. And just by offering appropriate support, we don't need to go in and redirect the play a different way, just extend what is interesting the children at the time, and making available materials and equipment that help them to follow on their own interests and play. And nurturing and extending play, we need to do our observations and share the information we find in our observations to continue nurturing and extending play. The fifth pillar, planning and assessing, or planning and assessing using ASHLR themes. We're all familiar now with our 4 themes, and again that involves conducting not long-winded, detailed observations, but noting down what is important, and that respects and reflects diverse cultures, even if those cultures aren't there present in the room, just to and reflecting about explaining your curriculum to parents, asking about parents and children's interests. That can happen at enrolment forum, that can or enrolment day. It's when you can establish what the interests are of the family, what the background of the family is, and what the interests are. You can make your curriculum more important to them and more real. And actively listening. Documentation can be used with children as a way of helping them to reflect on their experience and uncover and answer questions. And that's where you're listening and you're involved in the play, and you can support the children by referring back to their experience and developing activities that continue their learning. Pillar is supporting transitions. The first big transition to consider is home to preschool. The first major transitions will be the move from home into your setting, and to make this transition as smooth as possible for children and parents, you consider using a visual portfolio. That's where you share photographs and information about your service visually with children before they arrive. Share your setting in policy and strategies with them, and sticking too rigidly to your routines or giving warnings when an activity must end. But children in following their own play, but Yeah, and being flexible, but you don't have to clap your hands and finish something just because that's what you said is a day routine. And then to assess those routines that you're not curtailing play. And to conclude, thank you. Creating stimulating environments and activities for children highlights that both indoor and outdoor environments are full of discovery and exploration, and it provides us with a consideration of how varying the learning context can have very positive benefits for children, and that extending educational opportunities that practitioners, you yourselves, are well able to present to the children. Thank you very much.